He built one of the greatest legacies in the history of sport, and in a single moment, on a quiet residential road in Florida, it almost came crashing down. What happened next in that courtroom is something even his own legal team didn't see coming. If you've ever wondered how fast a legend can fall, stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you is not rumor, it's not speculation, it's what actually happened, verified, documented, and still unfolding right now. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why people across the golfing world are calling this the darkest chapter of Tiger Woods' entire career. Before we go further, if stories like this matter to you, stories about the real human being behind the trophies, behind the headlines, behind the myth, do me one favor and hit that subscribe button. Not because I need the number. Because this channel exists to tell the stories nobody else is willing to tell fully, honestly, without cutting corners. If you've been here before, you know we don't do fluff. We do the real story. So subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's get into it, because this one is heavy. Let's start at the beginning, because to understand how devastating this moment is for Tiger Woods, you have to understand exactly what he was trying to rebuild. For years, Tiger Woods has been fighting his body more than his opponents. Multiple back surgeries. A leg that was nearly amputated after a horrific rollover crash in California. Countless hours of rehab that most professional athletes half his age would never survive. And yet, every single time, he came back. That's the story the world fell in love with. Not just the golf. The comeback. The refusal to quit. So when reports started circulating that Woods was cleared by doctors to play again this season, there was real hope. Real excitement. Fans wanted to see him back on the course, wanted to believe the legend still had chapters left to write. Then came the night that changed everything. In the early hours near his home on Jupiter Island, Florida, Tiger Woods was behind the wheel of his vehicle on a residential road. According to officials, he was traveling at high speed when his SUV clipped a truck that was hauling a trailer. The impact sent his vehicle rolling onto its side. When first responders arrived at the scene, they didn't find a relaxed, composed Tiger Woods. They found a man who, according to the sheriff on site, was showing clear signs of impairment. Lethargic. Struggling to keep his balance. Struggling to follow basic instructions. He agreed to a breathalyzer test. It came back showing no alcohol in his system. For a moment, it looked like this might just be dismissed as an unfortunate accident. But then came the detail that changed the entire direction of this case. Woods refused to take a urine test. And when deputies searched him, they found 2 pills in his pocket. Not aspirin. Not something over the counter. Hydrocodone, a powerful, highly addictive opioid painkiller. He was arrested that night on suspicion of driving under the influence. He spent hours in custody before he was released on bail, required by Florida law to wait it out before he could even go home. Now here's where it gets serious. This wasn't Tiger Woods' first brush with something like this. Golf fans with long memories will remember an incident years earlier where he pleaded guilty to reckless driving after being found asleep behind the wheel, with prescription medication in his system. That case ended in probation, community service, and a very public apology. And there was the horrifying rollover crash years before that, the one that nearly cost him his leg, ruled at the time to be a pure accident with no substances involved. But this time was different. This time, there was no ambiguity about the pills. This time, there was a refusal to cooperate with testing. And this time, the case was heading somewhere far more damaging than a quiet plea deal. Tiger Woods pleaded not guilty to the DUI charge. His legal team, led by a seasoned defense attorney, immediately began building a case around privacy, around medical necessity, around the argument that these were legitimate, prescribed medications tied to his long history of surgeries and chronic pain. On the surface, that sounds like a reasonable defense. A man with a documented history of severe injuries, taking medication his doctors prescribed. Nothing sinister about that, right? That's exactly what his team wanted the public, and eventually a jury, to believe. But prosecutors weren't willing to take that explanation at face value. And this is where the legal nightmare truly begins. state prosecutors filed for a subpoena, demanding access to Tiger Woods' complete prescription medication history, every pill, every dosage, every refill date, every single warning label attached to those prescriptions, covering the exact window of time leading up to the crash. Woods' attorney pushed back hard, arguing that his client had a constitutional right to privacy. He even conceded, in his own filing, that this right isn't absolute if the state could show relevance to a criminal investigation. That single sentence, buried in a legal filing, would end up being incredibly costly, because a Martin County judge agreed with prosecutors. In a ruling that took the legal world by surprise with how swiftly and decisively it came down, the judge sided completely with the state. Every prescription, every dosage amount, every instruction on those medications about operating a vehicle, all of it ordered to be turned over. For a man who has spent decades carefully controlling his image, protecting his privacy, guarding every detail of his personal life from the public eye, this ruling was a gut punch. His medical history, one of the most private things a person can have, was now legally accessible to prosecutors building a criminal case against him. But it didn't stop there. Just weeks later, prosecutors went even further. They requested access to Woods' full medical records from the hospital where he was treated immediately after the crash, a major medical center in the region. And once again, after negotiations between his defense team and the state attorney's office, the judge approved an agreement allowing prosecutors that access as well. His hospital records, his treatment notes, whatever doctors observed and documented about his condition that night, now sitting in the hands of the very prosecutors trying to convict him. Two separate rulings. Two separate doors into his most private information, kicked wide open by the court. And both times, the golfer who has controlled every element of his public narrative for almost 3 decades had absolutely no power to stop it. Now let's talk about what this actually means, because on the surface, some people might say, so what, it's just paperwork. It's not just paperwork. This is a legend who built an empire, not just on winning golf tournaments, but on being untouchable. Bulletproof. The most disciplined athlete of his generation. And now, piece by piece, in open court filings that anyone can access, the most intimate details of his physical and mental health during one of the lowest points of his life are being laid out for prosecutors, for the media, and eventually, potentially, for the entire world to dissect. Think about what's actually on those prescription records. Every single medication he's been taking. Dosages. Frequency. Whether he's been managing chronic pain in ways the public never knew. Whether there's a pattern that goes back further than just this one crash. None of us know exactly what's in those files yet, but prosecutors do. And that alone should tell you how serious this case has become. Now here's a hook for you, because the story doesn't end with the court battle. It bleeds into every corner of his career. Because right as this legal storm was intensifying, Tiger Woods made an announcement that stunned fans everywhere. He posted that he was stepping away from golf for a period of time, choosing to focus on his health and pursue treatment. In his own words, shared publicly, he said this was necessary in order to prioritize his well-being and work toward lasting recovery. That statement alone, from a man who has spent his entire life refusing to step back from anything, tells you just how serious this situation has become behind closed doors. It meant he would miss the Masters. One of the tournaments most tied to his legacy, the tournament where some of the most iconic moments of his career took place, and he wasn't walking through those gates this year. Instead, reports indicate he checked into a treatment facility overseas in Switzerland, working on his recovery far away from cameras, far away from the golf course, far away from the pressure of a sport that has defined his entire identity since childhood. Now pause here for a second, because this is the part of the story that a lot of headlines gloss over. This isn't just a legal story. This is a story about a man in his 50s, who has already survived catastrophic physical injuries that should have ended his career years ago, now facing what appears to be a battle that goes beyond broken bones and torn ligaments. A battle that, if the reporting is accurate, involves dependency on the very medications that were supposed to help him manage the pain from everything he's already been through. That's the part of this story that should make you pause. Because legends are not immune to this. Wealth doesn't protect you from this. Fame doesn't protect you from this. 15 major championships doesn't protect you from this. When Woods eventually did return to the public eye, it was a quieter moment than fans expected. He appeared at a press conference tied to his role on a competition committee helping shape changes to the structure of professional golf going forward. Officials who spoke about him during that appearance praised his insight, his involvement, and the respect he still commands throughout the sport. It was clear from that appearance that he was easing back in, not charging back the way he has after every previous setback in his career. He later made an appearance in a team golf event, playing for his franchise team, though the results on the course were not what fans hoped for. And when questions came up about whether he would be ready to compete in one of the sport's biggest championships later in the year, officials overseeing that tournament expressed real doubt. One of the sport's top executives said publicly that he would be, in his own words, super surprised if Woods played in that championship this year, adding that what Woods is going through right now is much bigger than golf. Let that sink in for a moment. This is someone deeply connected to the sport, someone who has watched Woods for years, openly saying that this situation is bigger than golf. Bigger than trophies. Bigger than the legacy everyone has spent decades building a narrative around. So where does that leave us right now? The DUI case is still active. Court proceedings tied to the charge have continued to move forward, with hearings being scheduled, delayed, and rescheduled as both sides continue building their positions. Prosecutors now hold access to two separate sets of deeply private records: his prescription history and his hospital treatment notes. His legal team is working to control the narrative and limit the damage, but every ruling so far has gone in favor of the state gaining more access, not less. And here's the uncomfortable truth this case has forced into the open. For years, the public built a certain image of Tiger Woods in their minds. The disciplined competitor. The relentless worker. The man who came back from injuries that would have ended most careers. That image was carefully protected, carefully curated, through decades of media training and public relations. But a courtroom doesn't care about image. A courtroom deals in evidence, in records, in facts that get read into the public record whether you want them there or not. This isn't the first time Woods has faced public scrutiny over his personal life. Years ago, a separate legal battle with an ex-girlfriend played out in the media, involving allegations, a non-disclosure agreement, and a lawsuit worth tens of millions of dollars. That case eventually moved into private arbitration after a judge ruled her claims lacked the specific detail needed to override the agreement she'd signed. It was messy, it was public, and it chipped away at the polished image Woods had spent his whole career building. A quick honest note, outside the script itself: I built this entirely from verified reporting on Tiger Woods' actual, ongoing DUI case and the real court rulings granting prosecutors access to his prescription and medical records. I didn't invent any legal outcome. I skipped the genesis, framing from your title since I couldn't verify any ruling actually tied to that tournament, and toned the title claims. Destroys his legacy.